I'm standing outside the glass conference room, watching Marcus Wells flip through his presentation slides. He doesn't notice me yet. My heart pounds as I clutch my briefcase, ready to join the client meeting I've been preparing for all week. Then his assistant, Kelly, steps in front of me with an apologetic smile. Marcus says you're not needed today, she whispers, glancing nervously at the door. He wants to handle this one personally. The words hit me like a slap. I've spent countless hours perfecting the pitch for Horizon Industries, our biggest potential client. I know every detail, every number, every angle. But Marcus has decided I'm suddenly unnecessary. I force a tight smile. Did he say why? Kelly shakes her head. Just that he's got it covered. Through the glass, I watch Marcus laugh with the Horizon team, gesturing confidently. He's wearing his expensive suit. The one he brags costs more than my monthly rent. My stomach twists with a mix of humiliation and anger. I turn away before anyone inside notices me standing there like a fool. Little does Marcus know, this meeting isn't what he thinks it is. And neither am I. I've worked at Pinnacle Consulting for 7 years. Started as a junior analyst, climbed my way up through late nights and weekend work. Marcus joined 3 years ago as my manager, hired because his father played golf with the CEO. From day one, he treated me like I was beneath him. He'd take credit for my ideas in meetings, interrupt me mid-sentence, and assign me grunt work while giving the exciting projects to less experienced teammates. I stayed quiet, hoping hard work would speak for itself. My colleagues noticed, sometimes offering sympathetic looks, but nobody challenged him. The worst part? Marcus genuinely believed he was better than me. He'd dismiss my suggestions with a wave of his hand, only to present them as his own days later. When I landed the Horizon Industries lead through my own networking, he immediately inserted himself as project lead. I remember my mom's advice growing up: keep your head down, do good work, and people will notice. But what happens when the person blocking your light is the one everyone looks to? Last month, something shifted. I stopped hoping for fairness and started planning for something different. Something Marcus would never see coming. 3 weeks ago, I received an email that changed everything. It came late on a Friday, marked confidential. The sender was Victoria Chun, CFO of Ashford Holdings. I didn't recognize the company name initially, so I almost deleted it as spam. But curiosity won. I clicked it open. Dear Riley, we've been monitoring Pinnacle Consulting's performance on several contracted projects. We're impressed with your individual contributions and would like to discuss a confidential matter. My pulse quickened. How did they know about my specific work? I read on. Victoria explained that Ashford Holdings was a private equity firm that acquired struggling companies and restructured them. They'd recently purchased the majority ownership of several clients Pinnacle worked with, including Horizon Industries. She wanted to meet in person. I sat in my apartment that night, staring at the email. This felt like one of those moments where everything could change. Part of me worried it was too good to be true. Another part whispered that maybe, finally, someone was recognizing my actual value. I replied with a simple, professional acceptance. We scheduled coffee for the following Tuesday, somewhere far from Pinnacle's downtown office. Victoria Chin turned out to be sharp, direct, and surprisingly young, maybe 40. We met at a quiet cafe across town. She ordered black coffee and got straight to business. We've reviewed hundreds of consulting reports from Pinnacle, she said, sliding a folder across the table. Your name appears as a contributor on most of them, but Marcus Wells signs as lead. I nodded slowly, unsure where this was heading. She opened the folder, revealing highlighted sections of reports I'd written. These analysis sections? Brilliant. The strategic recommendations? Exactly what we needed. But the executive summaries Wells added. She wrinkled her nose. Surface-level fluff. My cheeks warmed with a mix of validation and embarrassment. Someone finally noticed. Victoria leaned forward. Ashford Holdings owns 60% of Horizon Industries. We're about to sign a major contract with Pinnacle, a 3-year consulting deal worth $12 million. But we want to ensure the right people are actually doing the work. She paused, watching my reaction. We want you leading it, not Marcus. I felt dizzy. This was bigger than I'd imagined. What are you proposing exactly? I asked carefully. Victoria smiled. Let's discuss terms. Victoria laid out her plan. Ashford Holdings would require that I be named lead consultant on the Horizon contract, with Marcus removed from direct oversight. If Pinnacle refused, Ashford would take their business elsewhere. Given the contract size, Pinnacle couldn't afford to lose it. But there was more. Victoria wanted to offer me a consulting partnership under Ashford's advisory division. I'd work independently, building my own team with Ashford's backing and clients. It was essentially my own firm without the startup risk. Why me? I asked, still processing. You could hire anyone. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Because we've watched you get buried under someone else's ego for years. We need people who do the actual work, not just take credit. Plus, your analysis on emerging markets? It saved Horizon $2 million in bad investments last quarter. I hadn't even known they'd implemented my recommendations. Marcus never mentioned it. She slid a contract proposal across the table. Take the weekend. Think about it. But know this, we're moving forward with Horizon next week, one way or another. I took the documents home, my hands shaking slightly. That night, I barely slept, reading every clause, imagining every possibility. Monday morning arrived with painful irony. Marcus called me into his office, that familiar smug expression on his face. He gestured for me to sit while he finished typing an email, making me wait as usual. So, big week ahead, he finally said, leaning back in his leather chair. Horizon's ready to sign. I'm meeting with them on Wednesday to close the deal. I nodded, saying nothing. I need you to prepare a backup deck, just in case, he continued. But honestly, I doubt we'll need it. I've got this relationship locked down. The casual dismissal stung, even though I knew what was really happening. Marcus had no idea that Victoria held all the cards. He thought his charisma and expensive suits were enough. Sure, I can prepare backup materials, I replied calmly. Marcus waved his hand. Great. Keep it simple, though. No need to overthink it. As I left his office, I passed Kelly in the hallway. She gave me that same apologetic look. He doesn't deserve you, she whispered quickly. I just smiled. She had no idea how right she was. In 48 hours, everything would change. That evening, I signed Victoria's contract. My hand trembled slightly as I scrawled my signature across the bottom of the partnership agreement. It felt like jumping off a cliff, trusting that a net would appear. But the terms were clear and generous. A guaranteed annual retainer, equity in future projects, and complete control over my consulting approach. Most importantly, protection from exactly the kind of treatment Marcus had subjected me to for years. I scanned the signed documents and emailed them to Victoria. Her reply came within minutes. Welcome to Ashford. See you on Wednesday. Wednesday. The day Marcus thought he'd be closing his biggest deal ever. The day he'd actually discover who really held the power. I spent Tuesday preparing not for Marcus's meeting, but for my own future. I updated my LinkedIn profile subtly, nothing that would raise suspicion yet. I drafted emails to 3 colleagues I trusted, people who might want to join me eventually. I organized my personal files, carefully separating my work from Pinnacle's proprietary materials. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Sarah. Drinks tonight? You sound stressed. I smiled. Rain check? Big day coming. I needed to stay focused. Wednesday morning felt surreal. I arrived at the office early, dressed more carefully than usual. A navy suit I'd been saving for something special. Marcus barely glanced at me when he arrived, too busy psyching himself up for his big meeting. Wish me luck, he said to the team, straightening his tie. Several people offered hollow encouragement. I just nodded. At 9:30 a.m., Marcus headed to the conference room where Horizon's team was already waiting. I watched from my desk as he entered with his oversized portfolio, radiating confidence. Then my phone buzzed. Victoria's message was simple, conference room B. Now, I stood, grabbed my laptop, and walked toward the other conference room, the smaller one typically used for internal meetings. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. Inside, Victoria sat with 2 other Ashford executives and Horizon CEO, David Park. The Horizon team, Marcus thought he was meeting, They were mid-level managers sent as decoys. David stood and shook my hand warmly. Riley, excellent to finally meet you properly. Victoria's told us great things. I glanced at Victoria, who smiled knowingly. Everything was falling into place exactly as she'd planned. For the next 90 minutes, we discussed the Real Horizon contract. David praised specific sections of my previous reports, asking detailed questions that showed he'd actually read my work. Victoria chimed in with strategic points, and I found myself speaking more confidently than I had in years. Nobody interrupted me. Nobody dismissed my ideas. Nobody took credit for my insights. We covered implementation timelines, budget allocations, and deliverable expectations. David wanted quarterly reviews with me specifically, not the Pinnacle team. When I suggested an innovative approach to their supply chain analysis, he immediately approved the budget for it. This was what collaboration felt like when you weren't fighting for basic respect. Around 11, Victoria glanced at her watch. Should we bring in Mr. Wells now? David nodded, his expression neutral but his eyes showing a hint of amusement. Let's get this over with. Victoria texted someone. 2 minutes later, Kelly appeared at the door, looking confused. Mr. Wells is asking where the Horizon team went. Victoria stood. Tell him conference room B. We're all here. The color drained from Kelly's face as she understood. She nodded quickly and disappeared. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what came next. Marcus burst through the door moments later, his face already flushed with confusion and irritation. He stopped short when he saw the setup, Victoria and the Ashford executives at the head of the table, David beside them, and me sitting in what was clearly the lead consultant's chair. What's going on? Marcus demanded, his voice tight. I was told the Horizon meeting was in Conference A. Victoria remained seated, perfectly calm. That was a preliminary session with Horizon's operational team. This is the executive meeting for contract finalization. Marcus's eyes darted around the room, landing on me with barely concealed anger. Riley, what are you doing here? I told you I didn't need backup today. David Park leaned forward, his voice polite but firm. Actually, Marcus, Riley is here because Ashford Holdings specifically requested her as lead consultant on this engagement. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Marcus process the words, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to something approaching panic. I'm sorry, what? Marcus said, forcing a laugh. There must be some misunderstanding. I'm the project lead. I've been managing the Horizon relationship. You've been signing your name to Riley's work, Victoria interrupted smoothly. We're aware. Marcus's face went from red to pale in seconds. He looked at me, then at Victoria, then back at the executives. Now wait just a minute. I've overseen every deliverable, every client interaction. Victoria slid a folder across the table. We've conducted a thorough review of all Pinnacle's Horizon-related work. This breakdown shows author metadata, email trails, and contribution logs. Riley created 92% of the strategic content. You added executive summaries and presented the findings. Marcus grabbed the folder, flipping through pages frantically. I could see his hands shaking slightly. He'd never expected anyone to look this closely. David spoke up, his tone measured. We're prepared to sign a 3-year, $12 million contract with Pinnacle Consulting. However, our terms require Riley Carter as the lead consultant with full project authority. These terms are non-negotiable. Marcus's jaw clenched. He looked directly at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before: fear. Riley, can we talk outside for a moment? Before I could answer, Victoria shook her head. Any discussion happens here, Mr. Wells. We're on a timeline. Marcus stood there, trapped. His entire performance was crumbling in real time, and everyone in the room could see it. This is ridiculous, Marcus finally said, his voice rising. I'm a senior consultant. I've been with Pinnacle for 3 years. Riley reports to me. You can't just... We absolutely can, Victoria said firmly. Ashford Holdings owns a controlling interest in Horizon Industries and 3 other clients currently working with Pinnacle. If you can't meet our terms, we'll move our business to a consulting firm that will. The implication hung heavy. Losing Horizon would be devastating. Losing multiple Ashford-owned clients would potentially destroy Pinnacle's entire mid-market consulting division. Marcus looked at me again, his expression now openly hostile. You set this up. You went behind my back to undermine me. I felt a flash of anger, but kept my voice level. I built relationships with clients through good work, Marcus. Something you'd understand if you ever actually did the work yourself. His face flushed deeper. I've managed. You've taken credit, I said, surprised by my own boldness. There's a difference. David cleared his throat. Gentlemen, Ms. Carter, let's stay professional. The question is simple. Does Pinnacle accept our terms or not? Marcus seemed to realize he had no leverage. His shoulders sagged slightly. I need to speak with Pinnacle's CEO before agreeing to any structural changes. Victoria nodded. Of course. We have a meeting scheduled with Richard Chun in 30 minutes. We assumed you'd need executive approval. Marcus's eyes widened. You already scheduled a meeting with Richard? Without telling me. We're Ashford Holdings, Mr. Wells. We don't need your permission to meet with your CEO, Victoria replied coolly. The power dynamic was now crystal clear. Marcus wasn't in control. He'd never been in control. He was just a middle manager who'd been coasting on other people's work, and now the system he'd exploited was collapsing around him. Kelly knocked softly and peeked in. Mr. Wells? Mr. Chun is asking for you in his office. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He shot me one more furious glance before storming out. After the door closed, David chuckled softly. Well, that was uncomfortable. Victoria turned to me. You okay, Riley? I nodded slowly, my heart still racing. Yeah, I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I felt free. 20 minutes later, I was summoned to Richard Chen's office. The CEO's suite occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Richard sat behind his massive desk, Marcus standing stiffly to one side, and Victoria seated comfortably in one of the leather chairs. Riley, please sit, Richard said, gesturing to the chair beside Victoria. His expression was unreadable, but I detected no hostility. I sat, feeling Marcus's glare burning into the side of my head. Richard folded his hands on his desk. Victoria's explained the situation. Ashford Holdings wants you as the lead consultant on their accounts, effective immediately. They're also offering you an independent partnership under their advisory division. I nodded, unsure if I should speak. Richard continued. I'll be honest, losing the Ashford contracts would hurt us significantly. We're talking about $15 million in annual revenue. He paused, but I'm also not blind to internal dynamics. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I've received feedback over the years, Richard said carefully, about team morale, about credit allocation, about management style. His eyes flicked to Marcus briefly. I've been remiss in not addressing it sooner. The room felt charged with tension. Richard turned to me. Riley, you've been a valuable asset to Pinnacle. If you choose to leave, I understand. But I'd like to propose an alternative. I leaned forward slightly, intrigued. We create a new position, Senior Director of Strategic Consulting. You'd report directly to me, not to Marcus. You'd lead the Ashford accounts and build your own team. Competitive compensation package, equity options, the works. I glanced at Victoria, whose expression remained neutral. This was my decision entirely. Marcus finally spoke, his voice strained. Richard, with all respect, reorganizing the entire department based on one client's demand sets a bad precedent. Marcus, I'm going to stop you there, Richard said firmly. This isn't about precedent. It's about recognizing talent and keeping our firm competitive. He paused. And frankly, it's about correcting mistakes I should have addressed years ago. The words hung in the air. Marcus's face went rigid, but he said nothing more. Richard looked at me expectantly. What do you think, Riley? I took a breath, weighing both options. Pinnacle with a new position and protection, or the partnership with Ashford and complete independence. I thought about the last 7 years. The late nights fixing Marcus's mistakes, the ideas I'd watched him present as his own, the constant feeling of being undervalued and overlooked. Then I thought about Victoria's offer, a chance to build something mine, with clients who actually respected my work. Richard, I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I've accepted Ashford's partnership. I'm giving my 2 weeks notice today. Marcus made a sound like a suppressed laugh. So you're just abandoning the team? After everything Pinnacle invested in you. I turned to face him fully for the first time. Marcus, you spent 3 years taking credit for my work and blocking my advancement. I don't owe you or this team anything beyond professional courtesy. Richard raised a hand before Marcus could respond. Riley, I understand your decision. Victoria, what happens with the Ashford contracts? Victoria smiled. Riley will service them through her new consulting partnership. We'll pay Pinnacle a referral fee for the transition, 20% of year 1 revenue. After that, Riley operates independently. Richard nodded slowly, calculating. That's generous. He looked at me. I hate to lose you, but I respect your choice. I wish you the best. I stood and shook his hand. Thank you, Richard. As we left Richard's office, Marcus followed us into the hallway. Riley, wait. I turned, Victoria staying close. Marcus's expression had shifted from anger to something resembling desperation. Look, maybe we can work something out. If you stay, I'll make sure you get proper recognition going forward. We can restructure our working relationship. Marcus, stop, I said quietly. This isn't about one project or one client. You've spent years undermining me. The only reason you're offering anything now is that you're scared of losing your own position. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. Fair. I felt a surge of frustration. You told me not to show up to today's meeting. You excluded me from the biggest deal I'd worked on for months. You don't get to talk to me about fair. Victoria touched my arm, gently. Riley, we should go. Marcus blocked our paths slightly. Who's going to manage the Ashford accounts at Pinnacle now? You realize this puts the entire team in a difficult position. I met his eyes steadily. That's not my problem anymore, Marcus. You're the manager. Figure it out. I stepped past him, and this time he didn't follow. The next 2 weeks felt like a dream. I worked out my notice period, documenting my projects and transitioning client relationships. Most of my colleagues were supportive, even excited for me. A few seemed hurt that I hadn't confided in them earlier, but I explained that everything had happened quickly. Kelly pulled me aside one afternoon. I knew you deserved better, she said softly. Marcus is panicking. He's been in meetings with Richard constantly, trying to prove he can handle the accounts. I felt a twinge of sympathy, but only a twinge. How's the team handling it? Kelly shrugged. Mixed. Some people are relieved, honestly. Marcus wasn't easy to work for. On my last Friday at Pinnacle, the team threw a small going-away gathering in the break room. Richard stopped by and gave a brief speech about my contributions. Marcus was notably absent. As I packed my desk that evening, Sarah texted me, "Drinks tonight? For real this time?" I smiled. Absolutely. I'm celebrating. And I was. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving towards something instead of away from something. That made all the difference. My first week with Ashford Advisory was everything I'd hoped for. Victoria set me up in a modern office space downtown, gave me a budget to hire 3 junior consultants, and connected me with 4 immediate clients, including Horizon. David Park called me directly on Monday. Riley, glad to have you officially leading our engagement. I'd like to schedule weekly check-ins, just you and me, to discuss strategic direction. The difference was staggering. No more fighting for access, no more watching someone else take credit, no more second-guessing whether my ideas would be stolen or dismissed. I hired 2 sharp analysts I'd worked with at Pinnacle. They jumped at the chance to leave Marcus's team. My third hire was a recent MBA grad with innovative ideas about data analytics. We clicked immediately as a team. Within 3 weeks, we delivered our first major report to Horizon. David's response was enthusiastic. This is exactly what we needed. Your team's approach is fresh and thorough. I forwarded his email to Victoria with a simple note. Thank you for the opportunity. Her reply, you earned it. Keep going. That night, I allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction. I'd taken a massive risk, and it was paying off. 2 months into my new venture, I received an unexpected email. The subject line read, Pinnacle Consulting, Leadership Changes. It was an internal announcement from Richard Chun, forwarded by Kelly. Marcus Wells had been transitioned to a different role, essentially demoted to a senior analyst position with no direct reports. The Ashford accounts he'd been trying to manage had apparently collapsed without me, leading to the loss of 2 additional clients. A new managing director had been brought in to rebuild the consulting division. The message emphasized renewed focus on talent development and collaborative leadership. Kelly's text followed. Marcus barely shows up anymore. He's looking for other jobs. Thought you'd want to know. I felt a complicated mix of emotions, vindication, certainly, but also a strange sadness. Marcus had built his career on taking credit for others' work, and when that foundation crumbled, he had nothing left. But I also remembered his smirk when he excluded me from that meeting, his casual dismissal of my contributions, his years of undermining my confidence. I replied to Kelly, "Thanks for letting me know. Hope the new leadership treats everyone better." Then I closed my laptop and focused on my own path forward. 6 months after leaving Pinnacle, my consulting partnership was thriving. We'd taken on 8 clients, expanded to a team of 7, and were being courted by 2 major corporations for long-term advisory contracts. Victoria invited me to dinner one evening at an upscale restaurant overlooking the harbor. Over wine and seafood, she proposed something ambitious, expanding the partnership into a full advisory firm with Ashford's backing. "You've proven the concept," Victoria said. "Now let's scale it. We're talking 20 consultants, dedicated research staff, offices in 3 cities." My head spun with possibilities. "That's a massive leap." Victoria smiled. "You've already made the hard leap, believing in your own value. The rest is just logistics." We spent the next 2 hours sketching out growth plans on napkins. By dessert, I'd agreed to explore the expansion seriously. That night, I walked along the harbor, watching boats bob in their slips. A year ago, I'd been sitting in my cubicle at Pinnacle, feeling trapped and invisible. Now I was planning to build a consulting firm that valued talent over politics. I texted Sarah, "Remember when you told me to quit that toxic job?" Her reply was immediate. Best advice I ever gave. Look at you now. The official launch of Carter Advisory, named after me, an honor I still couldn't quite believe, happened on a crisp October morning. We'd secured office space in a renovated historic building downtown, with exposed brick and soaring windows. The team gathered for our ribbon-cutting ceremony, which was really just us sharing coffee and donuts. But Victoria attended, along with David Park and 3 other major clients. Richardson even sent a congratulatory message, which Kelly had forwarded. To new beginnings, Victoria toasted with her coffee cup. We clinked paper cups together, laughing. My junior consultants looked energized and excited. This was a team built on mutual respect, where everyone's contributions would be recognized and valued. That afternoon, we held our first all-hands meeting. I stood at the front of our main conference room, looking at faces that trusted me to lead them well. "I started this firm because I believe great work deserves recognition," I said. "Because talented people shouldn't have to fight for basic respect. We're going to build something different here, a place where your ideas matter, where your contributions are visible, where you're valued for what you actually bring." They applauded, and I felt a lump in my throat. A year after leaving Pinnacle, I ran into Marcus at an industry conference. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked tired, older somehow. He was manning a booth for a small consulting startup I'd never heard of. He spotted me before I could slip away. "Riley, congratulations on Carter Advisory. I've heard good things." I nodded politely. "Thanks. How are you?" Marcus shrugged. "Different path now. Smaller firm, less pressure." He paused. "Look, I owe you an apology. I was a terrible manager. I took advantage of your work and your patience. I'm sorry." The apology caught me off guard. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, but saw only genuine regret. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "It wasn't an easy time." "I know." Marcus looked down. I justified it by telling myself I was doing the management work, the client-facing stuff. "But you were right. I was just taking credit. And when you left, I realized I didn't actually know how to do what you did." The confession was surprisingly vulnerable. Part of me wanted to stay angry, but another part recognized that holding on to bitterness wouldn't serve me. We all learn, I guess, I said finally. Good luck with your new role. As my firm grew, I made specific choices about culture and values. We implemented transparent attribution on all reports, every contributor's name clearly listed. We rotated client-facing presentations so junior consultants got visibility. We held monthly feedback sessions where anyone could voice concerns anonymously. Most importantly, I mentored my team intentionally. When Maria, one of my analysts, developed a breakthrough methodology for supply chain optimization, I made sure her name was front and center in the presentation to the client. When James, another consultant, struggled with confidence, I spent hours coaching him until he found his voice. I never wanted anyone on my team to feel the way Marcus had made me feel: invisible, disposable, undervalued. The approach paid off. Our retention rate was nearly perfect, and clients consistently praised our collaborative, thorough approach. We won 3 industry awards for innovation in our first 18 months. During an interview with a business magazine, the reporter asked about my management philosophy. I thought carefully before answering. I believe talent thrives when it's recognized and supported. My job isn't to take credit, it's to create conditions where my team can do their best work. The article ran with the headline, Building Culture Through Recognition. Today, I'm sitting in my corner office at Carter Advisory, watching the sunset paint the city in orange and gold. My firm now employs 30 consultants across 4 cities. We're consistently ranked among the top mid-size advisory firms in the region. I still remember that Wednesday morning when Marcus told me not to show up to the meeting. When he thought he could exclude me from my own work, my own client relationship, my own success. He had no idea that I'd already been noticed by people who mattered, who saw past his performance to recognize real value. He couldn't imagine that the contract he thought would make his career was actually mine all along. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed at Pinnacle, accepted Richard's counteroffer, and tried to make it work within that system. Would Marcus have really changed? Would I have ever felt truly valued? But I didn't take that path. I took the risk, jumped into the unknown, and built something better. My phone buzzes. Victoria's message reads, Board approved your proposal for expansion into international markets. Congratulations, Riley. You've earned this. I smile, saving the message. Then I close my laptop and head home, ready to celebrate another milestone with Sarah over drinks, the celebration we'd postponed a year ago. Because this story isn't really about Marcus or revenge or proving anyone wrong. It's about knowing your worth, protecting your work, and having the courage to walk away from situations that diminish you. It's about building something better and taking everyone who believed in you along for the journey.